Hello, Uklastis Sayachpis Masu. I'm happy to welcome you to the Hahuthi of the Tla-o-qui-aht and the Tribal Parks program. On behalf of Hatwith Hayuwe, Hatwith Hisguisinapshil, Hatwith Muchinink, Hatwith Nakwimathni, and Hatwith Nukmis, welcome. It's an honor to welcome you here today. And I'm going to share some history from our territories, and you'll hear some of the great things that Tla-o-qui-aht has done to get here today with our stewardship intact and our cultural revival in place, our wonderful homeland and sustenance that comes from it that allow this region to thrive. You'll be hearing stories of us as a whaling society, our battles with the American schooner, the Tonquin, and the survival of our rights and title to declare tribal parks in the Tla-o-qui-aht. We'd like to share our history so that you may understand the creation of tribal parks and understand some of the things that Tla-o-qui-aht people, and the Tla-o-qui-aht have done to get us in a modern sense today with our culture intact, our language being rebuilt, and our stewardship responsibility for our territories intact. We'd start this story in the 1600s. The Tla-o-qui-aht people were known as the Cedar Salmon people. Every item of our clothing, our tools, our implements, our housing, our mode of transport were all done and made out of red cedar. With a population of 10,000 people in this era, all living with that much red cedar, you could look at the mountains and you would not know that we were harvesting that much cedar. This is because the laws of Tla-o-qui-aht were alive and vibrant at this time. Our laws of Isak, respect. Our laws of Hishukitsawak, that everything is connected. That we live in the web of life, not on the top of it. The laws of our chiefs were really vibrant at this time. The potlatching system, a system where our chiefs would manage watersheds and harvest resources from our membership through the summer, and in the winter it would be the obligation of the chief to host potlatches and feed our people and to give food away to the people from their hard work through the summer. Chiefs do not get their greatness from naming mountains or monuments after themselves. Hatwe get their greatness through potlatching and feeding their people. In this era, we're also known as the Whaling Society, one of the very few in the world. It is a monumental task to ask 9 whalers in a canoe to take down this mammal. But the ability to feed your entire nation through one whale delivers a lot of greatness to those warriors. We have a lot of reverence for our ancestors that did this. And we're also grateful for a new relationship in the modern era where we benefit from whales through tourism and boat tours. It was a lot to ask a person to go out and do whale hunting. All the prayers and the preparation to go and ask that whale to give its life to feed your nation. It was a task to be out 4 days of paddling and to harvest a whale, and someone would have to dive in the water to sew the lips closed on that whale while they get ready to tow this whale back home to be processed on these islands out frontier and brought to the villages to feed people. This is a snapshot of our culture, 1600s, the respect of our territories, the relationship of reciprocity to the land, the potlatch system that had our people harvesting in the summer on the islands out here, and then we would move our village to the safe harbors and the sheltered inlets in the winter to conduct our chief's business to host potlatches. And potlatches could not be hosted by anybody other than our Hatwe, because the Hatwe owned the crests that are on the longhouse. They're required to caretake and protect their regalia, their songs. All of these are required at a potlatch and must be shared by the Hatwe. And we're grateful today that these tools are still active and still intact. As we move into other eras, 100 years later, Captain Cook is arriving in 1778, several watersheds away, and it starts a new era of trade and relationship away from whaling but into trading of otter pelts. One otter pelt was worth a year and a half's wages of a European male. The pelt was going to Asia for silks and teas and other things, and our people were getting sugars like molasses and blankets and metals, knives, glass beads. And this relationship of trade lasted for several decades, from 1778 at first contact into 1811, 1812, 1813. Our chiefs had traded 3 years of wealth with the American schooners, which led to a trade dispute as our chiefs were seeking a vessel of that size of our own. I'd like to share a word in our language. The word for bird is mamati, which is, the root word is ma'uas, which is houses in the trees. The word for the newcomers that come here is mamahni, which means houses so big they lived on the ocean, which hints at the grandeur that we applied to these vessels and that we wanted our own. But when 3 years of wealth had left our territory, and that's 3 years of our ability to feed our people, it led to a dispute with the Americans where we raided the American military base on Mears Island called Fort Defiance. And on their way out, they bombed the village of Opitsit down to the ground. And subsequently, when we boarded the Tonquin vessel, and they didn't want to give the vessel to us for what we paid for it, they lit the powder keg room and sank the Tonquin to the bottom of the ocean. And we lost a lot of people that day. Everybody did. And had it not been for this skirmish and this trade dispute, this might be part of America today. As you all know, the history in 1812 was the War of Independence, where America was pushing northward in an interest to unite all of North America under a one nation state. Yet this is what was happening on the West Coast. This is 1813. The British and the French and Canada were pursuing certainty to land through treaty making, pursuing treaties all the way across Canada. And they stopped making treaties because they thought the First Nation population was dwindling greatly. I'd seen a census of our village of Opitsit in 1911 that showed 110 Tla-o-qui-aht. So today, all of our membership can show our lineage to those 10 families. So I could see a few decades earlier in 1850 that the population was declining greatly. And Sir Douglas in Victoria said that it is costing too much. It's too much work to make these treaties. We're not making treaties anymore after these 6 that were made in Victoria called the Douglas Treaties. So at no time in Tofino or in this area, in the Hahouthi, the Tla-o-qui-aht, did any of our Hutway encounter an Indian agent or a treaty agent that was here to sign treaties. It never occurred. Canada changed its tactics to get certainty to land. In 1888, they made it illegal to gather in any significant numbers as Indigenous people. They made it illegal to potlatch. They banned the potlatch from 1888 to 1950. The interest was to stop our chiefs from benefiting from our resources and feeding our people. This tactic did not work. Our chiefs took the crests of our longhouses and transposed them onto curtains so that we could continue to potlatch. And if an Indian agent or a RCMP were coming up the village path, we could fold up the curtain and hide it and pretend like we weren't doing the chief's work. In 1898, another tactic was applied to our people. Another attempt to break our connection to our territories and our culture. They took our children into the residential school system, which persisted until 1984. I would be the first generation to not have to go to this school system. Many things were applied to our people to break our connection to the land, yet this did not work. Our language is being taught again. Our culture has survived. Our children have learned how to follow the salmon around our homeland and where the clam gardens are. Taking us back a moment to where treaties were abandoned in 1854 in British Columbia, and the rationale that populations were declining. The census of the Opitsit village in 1911 was 110 people. Today, all the Tla-o-qui-aht members can show our lineage to those 10 original families, to those 10 surviving families, and those 110 people. So I could see when the story started at 10,000 people, how in 1911 there was 110 Tla-o-qui-aht. I could see a few decades earlier that the population is declining through these epidemics, smallpox and measles. Our next significant milestone in 1960 was the first time that Indigenous people in Canada were allowed to hire a lawyer. The first thing that Tla-o-qui-aht did with our ability to hire a lawyer was in 1984, we took Canada to court to stop logging on Mears Island. It was not a question of how and when and where to log. It was who has the right to issue a tree farm permit. And it cost us $13 million in today's dollars to protect the trees and the drinking water that Tofino accesses from Mears Island. And it was declared in the Supreme Court of Canada that Mears Island is clearly Aboriginal title land. And Tla-o-qui-aht articulated its Aboriginal title land as a Mears Island Tribal Park. And we spent the next 20 years in good faith trying to negotiate the existence of tribal parks into the fabric of Canada. The ambition to describe what a tribal park is to Canada, how to share Aboriginal title lands, the flora, the fauna, the drinking water, the medicinal plants, the hunting grounds and the mud flats. And this is what a tribal park is, as described in 1984 by our elders. We worked for many years trying to implement them at the treaty negotiation table, till finally in 2008 we were instructed to pursue development of our tribal parks outside of treaty. Our second tribal park was declared in 2008 in Kennedy Lake, Tribal Park. In 2013, our third tribal park was declared for Onadsis-Ilsiclis watersheds. And then finally, on the 30th anniversary of Mears Island, our whole Tla-o-qui-aht was declared a tribal park in 2014. This is an articulation of how we share our territories with Canada. In the subsequent declarations for our tribal park, it declared that tribal park guardians would monitor and manage and oversee the implementation of our tribal park visions. It was also declared that ecosystem service fees, recognizing the tribal parks as servicing us with clean water and fish and tourism, was a benefit. In 2018, the Tla-o-qui-aht membership instructed our lands department to reach out to all the businesses in Tofino that benefit from the Mears Island Tribal Park, the Mears Island drinking water that comes here and creates this economy, to approach them to implement a model of ethical travel to the Tla-o-qui-aht, to the tribal parks. It would seek 1% from the client, that while the business is here, that something is left behind for the grandchildren that are coming. That a legacy, while this economy is here, that something is being left behind to support the rebuilding of our language, of our village of Opitsit, longhouses, and athletic hall, and stewardship. Guardians that are helping rebuild our watersheds to recover from the logging and the deforestation. So we're really happy that you're at a Tribal Park Ally business today and seeing this video. This is just a snapshot of our history, a very brief snapshot of our long history. But from it you can hear a small part explaining some of the great things that our Hotway have done to get us here today with our stewardship intact, our cultural revival occurring. It's an honor to welcome you here all today. Tla-o-qui-aht, have a good stay. Chew. To learn more about us, visit tribalparks.com.